Hey everyone, Hydra Hut here. This is Venom First Host number 3. It's of course by Marvel. This is part of that weekly release run that Costa and Bagley is doing. Of course, we also have Lim, the wrong one, Hannah, Elmara, and Hennessy. Also a digital code inside, so if you make it through, you get a free comic. First come, first serve, and all that good stuff. Let's talk about the cover a little bit. So the cover is kind of your opening paragraph of the comic. It's telling the consumer what to expect, and if it's an avid reader, it's kind of giving them a hint as to what they may or may not find inside. Sometimes they use allegories for covers. Sometimes they're very, very blatant and in your face. Other times they have absolutely 100% nothing to do about the comic, and they're just trying to resell art that they purchased a long time ago. Those are my least favorite. This, on the other hand, it's pretty good. It's pretty accurate, actually. So this would lead you to believe that there's some sexual tension between the two, or that they actually physically make some contact with one another. That's both true and not true. There is some definite sexual tension. That's because our boy Eddie Brock doesn't wear clothes in this entire episode. He's just running around in his boxer briefs looking like a badass. And she warms to his form pretty quick. But that's about as far as it goes. We don't get any sort of actual kissing or relationship-like stuff. It's just very clear that she appreciates the way Eddie looks. So, picking up where we left off, the symbiote's original owner left Eddie naked and alone with the essentially symbiote fetus, his child, or his symbiote's child. And as he's sitting there reflecting on what's happening, there's these gray word bubbles that I brought up before and how I didn't know what they were, because they weren't the symbiote talking, they weren't Eddie thinking to himself, and they never really explained it. I just assumed it was some weird thing for Eddie's internal monologue. But finally, we get some payoff, and they tell us what the shit these are. This is actually his child, this little symbiote guy here. Has a telepathic link with him because they're, basically blood relatives. And he realizes that as it starts having a different opinion than him midway through his reflection. While this is happening, our blonde doctor friend comes in. She starts acting extremely weird, nothing like how she would, and that's when we realize that it's not actually her. It's actually that Skrull, yeah, the Skrull girl. Scroll chick who was fighting the the first host, who was fighting the first host. She's very, very, very mad. She kind of fills Eddie in on what that guy's plans are, how bad of a person he is, and what he's planning on doing with that symbiote. Also that the symbiote has no choice in what it's going to be doing. They've gone through some extreme training back in the day. He's immune to the... So when you take on the symbiote, you get a narcotic high, which is why Eddie was so addicted to it at first. He's grown accustomed to that. This first host had special training, so he is unaffected by that narcotic high. And he can also control the symbiote in ways that nobody else can. Well, that Eddie can't, none of his previous hosts can, because they weren't extensively trained. And as we're finding out all that, Eddie is, of course, in the buff. We get some great art as they're doing flashbacks to that first host's past. The Skrull girl is looking rather attractive. Honestly, the chin bumps make me think that Thanos is supposed to be part Skrull. I don't know, though. This has nothing to do with any of this. We disappear for a little while to get a little bit of updates on what's happening with our first host guy. And that's when we find out that the Skrull girl was not lying to us. He really does have more control over the symbiote than anybody else has. This is where it starts to get really interesting now. So, Eddie's... I'm just going to call it Eddie's child. This is symbiote's child. We're just going to call it Eddie's. Is very, very insistent that they need to go and save the symbiote. The Skrull girl is going regardless because she's going to try and save her people. She thinks she's already failed, essentially. But our symbiote friend is like, no, we're going. Eddie's like, no, you're too young. And he's like, I don't care. And he bursts out of his little bubble, takes over Eddie, and and he is really interesting, really unique in comparison to a lot of the other Kaiens they've shown. And I'm actually a big fan of how he looks. So if you don't want to see how he looks until you read this comic, go ahead and just shut it off now. Go buy it, enjoy it, or hold your hand in front of the screen if you're waiting for the Marvel code, because this is what our new symbiote looks like. Pretty freaking cool. Loving the black on yellow. These kind of confuse me, but a little bit later in, we'll see what's going on with this stuff. We also find out his powers are extremely unique compared to the last couple symbiotes we've seen. His vision allows him to see the invisible scroll ship. They don't really give us if it's like an infrared or what. We just know that it's kind of a pink hue and allows him to see stuff that other people can't. He also controls pheromones. He also can control pheromones, hormones, and can even like concentrate and liquefy them if need be. Real quick though, here's the digital code. I'll see if I can get this off without being too retarded. You know what's gonna suck? If you're a Fantastic Four fan, woo! Can you imagine being a lifelong Fantastic Four fan? They finally bring back and reunite the family. It's got this mass murderer Dan Slott on there. The guy's never seen an IP he hasn't just gotten hard from destroying. Absolutely raped the piss out of Silver Surfer, all while pretending he was a huge fan. No, he was not. He was using the Silver Surfer as a temp run to show the Doctor Who fan base that he could write Doctor Who, because that's all that was. And he's destroyed Spider-Man, just absolutely raped the piss out of Spider-Man for over a decade. And his Fantastic Four is absolute rubbish. They just don't care. They just flat and don't care. Anyway, here's your code. It's marvel.com/redeem. Get your free comic, enjoy it, love it, whatever. Moving back on though, let's check out some more of this symbiote. Skip ahead, don't need to see that. Yeah, check him out. So our powers are still immature, but they see things differently. And where is it? We have a subtle array of chemical and pheromone production at our disposal, in either direct liquid contact or aerosol form. And that's when we find out that he was actually using some light mind control to convince her to let him come along. She warns him to never do that again. And he gets this big smile, and that's, honestly, I think that's a very, very, very cool design for the character. It's not jagged tooth like a lot of the other ones. He's got these unique, like, cheek things, and his eyes look quite a bit different. I'm a big fan of that. One thing I mentioned that I really haven't quite shown is the little bit of physical contact between the two. So while Eddie and the Skrull are arguing, this right here, you can tell she's very interested in him. He's telling her he's going to go, and she's telling him she doesn't need him, and then she starts groping his chest, and it's like, ooh, you are quite a specimen, though. I thought that was some good, subtle writing to show she was hot for his form. So I think stuff will probably evolve with them later on. All in all, though, I'm a fan. It is $3.99, which is stupid expensive for a weekly release. They should be doing these for $2.99. It is a good story, though. I'm liking it. So if you got the money to spend, I recommend it. That's Venom, First Host, number 3. Thanks for watching. Hail Hydra, baby.